Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Guide to the FMAA Certification webinar. My name is Kurt Diekman. I'm the Director of Program Development here with HOCK International, and my pleasure to welcome you this morning in your pursuit of this certification and just the growth of your professional career. We are going to get started here momentarily with Brian Hock. He is our founder and CEO. He will be the one presenting all the information today, so you'll be hearing firsthand from the best in the business about how to go about prepping, studying, understanding what's needed, what's expected, and kind of what you need to deliver in your own personal studies. So, quick rundown of the agenda today. What is the FMAA certification? Probably many of you know what it is, but let's talk really about what it focuses on and why it's important. Who should consider it? What the content and structure of the exam are, how it's graded, how you'll get your results. We're going to look too at the study timelines and the cost for it. Obviously, those are things that are going to be important to you, what you need to put into it, and what it's going to set you back financially. Not set you back, but more so investing in your future. What we offer as study materials from HOCK, we've got a fairly robust set of means to get you educated and understanding the material so that you're prepared for the testing. And then we'll have a Q&A session. One thing I do want to mention to you, if you do have a question, down at the bottom of the screen, there's a button that says Q&A. There's also one that says chat, but you can ignore that one. If you have a question and you want to put it into the Q&A, that'll be great. We'll either address it written while the session's going on, or we'll actually talk about it at the end of the session after Brian gets done. So with all those housekeeping things out of the way, I will get out of your hair and I will let you talk to the expert. This is Brian Hock, our founder and CEO of HOCK International.
Thank you very much, Kurt, and thank you everyone for giving us some of your time this evening. I always like to recognize the fact that time is the one resource that we have that's most limited, and so we appreciate you trusting us with some of your time. My goal is to make this a value add for you so that when we're done with our session here in an hour, whatever time it is, you feel more comfortable, more confident in whatever decision you're making and whatever it is that you're considering FMAA for. But what we want to start with, as Kurt said, is talking about what is FMAA? What is it? And we'll talk a little bit about who it's for. Well, it stands for Financial and Managerial Accounting Associate, and the name is descriptive. We're talking here about that kind of entry-level stages. And so this is a foundational certification that's been developed by IMA, and this is, we'll talk about later, it builds and leads nicely into the CMA exam. And so if you're thinking about CMA and you're not certain about that, FMAA is a great way to make that kind of first step into the CMA certification. What FMAA is doing is it's providing that basic, needed, necessary, essential knowledge and skills that you need in the early stages of your career, whether it's accounting, finance, anywhere in the business field. These are the skills that you need to have in order to be able to do your job well. And it's doing your job well that's most important, because that's what allows you to have new opportunities, promotions, new opportunities in new companies, new parts of your own organization, whatever the case may be. And so FMAA is designed for people that are in their first couple of years of their accounting or finance career. If the next step in your career is you're trying to become the CFO or you're trying to become the finance director, FMAA is not the certification that's going to give you the skills that you need to do that. If you're starting your career, you're still in university, you're just out of university, or as we'll talk about in a little bit, you're not in accounting right now, but you're thinking of moving into accounting or finance, FMAA is going to give you that foundation, that knowledge that you need to be able to be successful in those earlier stages of your career, those first years you have in your career. So the question then is, who is FMAA for? And there's a handful of groups of people or categories that we believe FMAA really will be very helpful in launching your career. And we need to start by saying this is really anybody who's trying to demonstrate proficiency to their employer or potential employer. You're at university, you're going to be looking to be interviewing at some point soon. You've recently finished university, you are looking for a job, you're in a job, you're looking for a different job, a better job. And one of the things that you have to do in an interview is to demonstrate that you have the knowledge and the skills to do the job that you are interviewing for. Later in your career, you demonstrate that knowledge and those skills by your experience. You've had 10 years of experience. These are the jobs you've done. People know what it is you're able to do. But at the early stages of your career, you don't have that experience. You have your university education, perhaps. And so what you need to be able to demonstrate in that interview in a very short period of time is that you have the knowledge that you need to have in order to perform this task, this job. And FMAA helps you do that by being from IMA, by being from an internationally recognized, accepted organization. This is telling the employer, these are the skills that you have. And so anybody who's trying to demonstrate that they have the skills, this is going to help you do that. And so when you're at early stages of your career, you graduated, you have a couple of years of experience, and this is still the skill level of the jobs you'd be performing, then this is what's going to help you demonstrate that. Also, as I said earlier, this is a nice lead into the CMA certification, but others as well, CPA, CIA, ACCA. If you're entering the world of professional certifications and you look at CMA and you look at the syllabus and you think, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Well, FMAA is that great starting point. It's a way to get into professional certifications. It's a different study process. It's a different examination process than what you've done at university. And so FMAA is a nice first step into the world of professional certifications. Smaller syllabus, it's not quite as big of a step for you. And so if you're looking to start your certifications, but you are intimidated by CMA, you look at the syllabus and you think, wow, that's really deep and that's really broad. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. Well, this is a way to make that first introduction. And we'll talk about the syllabus of FMAA here in just a moment. But another group of individuals that FMAA is very, very helpful for are people that are outside of the accounting and finance kind of departments or career line, but are starting to be involved in financial conversations and decisions. If you're in IT, if you're in HR, if you're in marketing, as you move up the organizational chart, if you're just the marketing intern, you're not going to be involved in any of these conversations. But when you move up in the marketing department, you start being involved in meetings where the budget is discussed. And the marketing discussion isn't just about the marketing process, but it's about the cost of the marketing. It's about the return of the marketing. It's how we measure that. It's how the different costs of marketing may be accounted for in different situations. And so what happens is, even if you're not in accounting or finance, there is a level in the organization at which you begin to be involved in conversations that are about accounting and finance, IT, logistics, production. And so if you are outside of accounting or finance, but starting to have these conversations, starting to have these questions asked, FMAA will help you be prepared for that. FMAA will help you understand how the financial statements work. What are the financial statements? How are the financial statements connected? And how is it that perhaps the way that the marketing campaign is structured impacts the costing of it and how those costs are allocated or how those costs are going to be recorded? And so this is a foundation, not just for accounting and finance professionals, but it's a foundation for people that are starting to get involved in the accounting and finance processes at an organization as you go up, as you get promoted, and as you go into those higher levels of the organization that aren't in the accounting and finance departments themselves. So I would expect a lot of you here are probably in the early accounting and finance profession stages, but keep in mind that this skill set isn't only for accountants and finance professionals. Other people in the organization have to have the same skill set and to be able to have the same understanding of the financial statements and budgeting and basic costing. So let's go into what is covered on the FMAA exam. And I'll first talk about the topics that are on the FMAA exam, and then I'll talk about how these topics in the coverage compares to the CMA exam. So there are 5 sections, and we can see here the sections and the percentage of the exam that each of these sections are. We have general accounting and financial management, and this is largely the debits and credits of accounting. Okay, there's a couple other topics within Section A here, but most of it is about debits and credits and the accounting cycle, how we record the transactions during the year, how it is that we get to our trial balance, we get our first trial balance, we make the adjustments for it when we prepare the financial statements. Now, don't worry, you're not going to be doing a multinational consolidation here, but it's understanding the basics of the debits and credits and how we buy inventory and sell inventory and things like that. And so that's that accounting cycle, how it is that the company records the transactions, how it is that those transactions become the financial statements. Okay, that's Section A. Section B, financial statement preparation and analysis. There's a little more discussion about accounting for some specific topics, fixed assets, get a little more into that. But this is also financial statement analysis, ratio analysis. Okay, the basics of ratio analysis. We're talking about the quick ratio, current ratio, basic debt to equity ratios, and things like that. Okay. Section C, planning and budgeting. Okay, it's talking about planning and budgeting, how we create the budget, the process of creating the budget, kind of some basic budgeting concepts and the foundation of budgeting. Section D, we get into cost management and performance metrics. We start doing a little bit of costing. We allocate overhead. We start looking at those cost figures a little bit. We do a little bit of variance analysis, just kind of introductory. Okay, we're not talking about deep level variance analysis and things like that, but just understanding what's happening, that process of comparing the budgeted results to the actual results and trying to be able to understand what happened. Why was the budget wrong? Why were the actual results different than we expected? And then finally, in the last section, we get into ethics. Excellent that ethics is here. Ethics should be part of every course. Every certification needs to have ethics in it because this is just a foundational way of how we do business, how we operate, how we conduct ourselves. And so this is what we have as the syllabus of the FMAA exam. Now, what I want to do is spend a moment and compare this to CMA. Okay. And this is important because I said earlier that FMAA is a great foundation into CMA and a great starting point for it. So if we take this FMAA syllabus, okay, Section B, C, D, and E, everything except the debits and credits, okay, everything except the debits and credits of the FMAA exam is on the CMA exam. Okay, everything except debits and credits on the FMAA exam is on the CMA exam. So, for example, on the FMAA exam, we have ratio analysis. On the CMA exam, there is ratio analysis. Here's the difference. In the FMAA exam, there are 25 ratios. In the CMA exam, there are those 25 ratios plus, I believe, 52 more ratios. Okay, the same 25 ratios that are in FMAA plus 50 some more ratios. All of the concepts about budgeting that are in the FMAA exam are in the CMA exam, but the CMA exam goes more deeply into it. The methods of variance analysis that are on the FMAA exam are also all on the CMA exam, plus more detailed variance analysis. And so if you are looking at FMAA as a foundation to CMA, it's an excellent way to start. Your studying for CMA will be easier if you have done FMAA, because when you get to ratio analysis on the CMA exam, you will have already learned the first 25 ratios, and you will be able to focus on the other 50. When you get to variance analysis, you'll have already done the basic materials and labor variances, and you'll be able to focus on the new variances that are covered in CMA that are not covered in FMAA. Okay, so FMAA builds very nicely into the CMA exam. And if you've done FMAA, your CMA studies will absolutely be a little bit easier, a little bit faster, because you've already done some of that studying. And as I said, the thing that's different in FMAA is the debits and credits. CMA does not teach or test debits and credits. It assumes that you already have that knowledge. But the FMAA exam covers that debits and credits and makes certain that you have that foundation. Now, like I said, after FMAA debits and credits, you're not going to be able to account for derivatives. You're not going to be able to make the adjusting entries for a consolidation. But you will understand debits and credits. You'll understand double entry bookkeeping. You'll understand how it is that those transactions that the company enters into get recorded as journal entries, and how those journal entries ultimately then become the financial statements. Okay, so that's going to be that main difference between FMAA and CMA, is that coverage of debits and credits in the FMAA exam. So let's talk a little bit about the exam itself. There's one exam. There are 80 multiple choice questions. The exam is available in English or Arabic. And the testing windows are only now for Arabic. In English, the exam is available throughout the year. In Arabic, the upcoming testing windows that presumably you'd be interested in are September 14th to the 22nd of 2025, and then end of January and beginning of February in 2026. If you are sitting here today and you are looking to take the exam in Arabic, and you're wondering if you have time to take the exam in September, you might. Okay, you might be able to do that, and we'll talk about how long it takes here in just a little bit. We'll come back to that specific question, but it is very possible you would be in a position to be able to do that. So we said that the exam is 80 multiple choice questions. You're going to receive what is called a scaled score between 0 and 300, and your passing score is 200. Okay, now I know we're accounting and finance people here, and so we've all done the math, and we've said, oh, if it's between 0 and 300 and you need 200 to pass, you need to get 67% of the questions correct. Well, your math is correct that yes, 200 is 67% of the 300 total possible score, but it's not exactly that. The scaled score means that what IMA does is they take into account the difficulty of your exam. Okay? The database of questions. They pull your 80 questions out of that database. As you're studying, you will learn that some questions are easier, some questions are more difficult. Not all questions are the same. Not all questions have the same difficulty, but on the exam, all the questions have the same value. It's 1. Each question is the same. And so what they do is they say, okay, based on this collection of questions that was given, was this exam a little bit harder than average, a little bit easier than average, or exactly the same as average? And so your scaled score compares your score really to the specific exam that you took and the statistics that they have for that exam that you are taking. Okay, that 80 questions that they pulled out of the database for you specifically. What I would tell you is that you need to have in mind 75%. If you get 60 of the 80 questions correct, you will pass. 59, probably. But every question correct, you go down from 60, the lower your chance of passing. Because if you get 57 of the questions correct, but your exam was an easy one, that may not become a scaled score of 200. So you need to just, the mindset that I tell people to have is 75%. If you get 75%, you're good. You'll pass. Okay. 59 questions correct. Yes, you'll probably pass, but let's not leave it up to that. Okay, have that mindset that you're going to get at least 60 of the 80 questions correct. And it's not going to be a question. The scaled score isn't going to come into play for you. You're going to pass because you have earned it, and your score just is automatically a pass. So that's what's going to happen in terms of the grading and the results. Let's talk a little bit about how long it takes to study and how much it's going to cost. And I know the cost information is on the screen, but I'll come back to that and talk about that in just a minute. So let's talk a little bit about how long it takes to study. And this is, when would you be able to take the exam? How long it will take you to study will be largely impacted by one factor. And that one factor is whether or not you already know debits and credits. Okay. If you've taken the first financial accounting class at university, or whatever the accounting class is at university where they teach you debits and credits, if you already know debits and credits, it is going to take you a lot less time to prepare, because you won't have to study as much. You'll still need to study, but you won't have to study as much Section A. And if you remember, if you're in that group of people that have already studied debits and credits, think back to your process of learning the debits and credits. It's not always easy. And so if you've already learned the debits and credits, you won't have to go through that again. You still need to read Section A. You still need to go through it all, make certain that you have it correct, get the terminology correct. But if you've already studied debits and credits and already know the debits and credits, your preparation time is going to be significantly less than somebody who hasn't yet learned debits and credits. Now, let's say you're in that department or in that group of people that have not already studied debits and credits. Can you do FMAA? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. If you're sitting there today and you say, never studied accounting before, can you pass FMAA? Yes, you can. Okay. It'll take a little longer for you to prepare because you don't have that foundation of knowledge when you go into this preparation. But absolutely, you can prepare and you can pass the FMAA exam, even if you don't have any financial accounting background coming into it. It's not going to be easy. Okay. It's going to take a little more effort on your part to go through and to learn all of that content that you need to. But yes, absolutely, you are able to do this. As it says here, the timeline depends a lot on your background. I would say you're probably looking at 2 to 3 months. Okay. Now, again, remember, when we're talking about ratios, if you have studied ratios at university or wherever, you've probably done most of these 25 ratios. If you haven't done ratios before, it'll take you a little bit longer. Okay. 2 to 3 months is what I would say. And this is studying 10 to 12 hours a week. Okay. You'll be more than prepared. What we do in our system, our learning system that we call PassMap, you put in the date that you plan to take the exam, and it builds out a schedule for you from today until the day you take the exam, what you need to be studying each day, when you need to be starting each of the individual study units. It tells you how many hours per week you need to study to be ready when you want to take your exam. And so we build that, we guide you, and that's a tool you're able to look at. If you're planning to take the exam on, September 1st, and you sit down one day to study, and it says that you need to study 38 hours a week to be ready by September 1st, you might think, I don't have 38 hours a week to study, so maybe I need to change my plan. I'm not going to be ready to take the exam on September 1st. Maybe it needs to become October 1st, or whatever the case may be. It's a personal, individual process. And I know sometimes you have a friend or a colleague who's studying the same exam you are, and they're faster than you, they're slower than you, and you become worried that you're too slow or you're too fast. It's different for everybody. And so you just need to find the path, find the schedule and the amount of time that it's going to take for you. I say it's going to take 2 to 3 months. Somebody out there can probably be ready next month, in a month. Somebody might need 5 months. Okay, depending on how much you're able to study a week, what your background is, that's what's going to determine when it is you're going to be ready and how quickly you're going to be ready to take the exam. The costs. The cost, if you go to IMA's website to register for the exam, is $299. That's paid to IMA. If you have HOCK study materials, there's a $50 discount on that. And so if you're studying with HOCK, you're able to register for the exam for $249 instead of $299. So that's one cost. The other cost is the materials, the study materials to prepare for the exam. We have moved our process, our materials to a subscription basis, and you can subscribe per month, and you can pay $49 per month. And if you need it for 1 month, you only need to pay for 1 month. If you need it for 2 months, you pay for 2 months. If you need it for 3 months, you pay for 3 months. As long as you need it, that's how many times you need to pay. We have a 6-month subscription, and the 6-month subscription, these are discounted prices that we have right now on our site, is $149 for 6 months. And again, we're accounting and finance people probably here. And so you sit there and you think, well, it's $49 for a month and it's $149 for 6 months. Yeah, that's a significant discount on that. But what we're recognizing, as I said, most people will take 2 to 3 months to study. And so if you're planning to take 3 months to study and you'd like, you can just subscribe for 6 months and essentially get months 4, 5, and 6 for free. Give yourself a little bit of extra time if you want. But just it's a matter of you choosing the subscription that you want. And as you see here, there's discounted prices. We have a 40% discount right now on our site to subscribe to the materials. And so those are the discounted prices. But if you take 6 months to study and you pay $149 for that, and you pay $249 to take the exam, what is that, $498 total to study for the exam and to take the exam. Okay, so that's kind of the total cost if you do that in 6 months and you pass the first time that you take the exam. So let me talk just a little bit more about the study materials. We have essentially everything that you need to study. And I mentioned this, I should have mentioned this on the previous slide. When you sign up for subscription, there's a 3-day free trial. And so you can cancel in that 3 days and not owe us anything. It's just a chance for you to look at the materials and to see if this is going to do what you need it to do. We have a textbook, we have a test bank, and we have videos. And I know that I was talking earlier about if you have debits and credits or you don't have debits and credits and how that's going to impact your learning process. One thing to keep in mind is that if you haven't learned debits and credits yet, you would be learning mostly through our videos, and I'm the person in the videos who will be teaching you the debits and credits that you need for the FMAA exam. And I like to think I do a good job of it. I've been teaching this for a while, and so I've kind of figured this out a little bit. But we have videos that cover all of the content, okay, that starts on page 1 and goes all the way through everything else. We have all of that content, that is there, covers everything and makes everything available for what it is that you need. We have a test bank, multiple choice questions. We have 2 mock exams that help you learn all that, what you read and what you watch in the videos, kind of make all of that active for you. We have 2 mock exams at the end, new questions that you haven't seen before to help you make an assessment as to how well it is that you know the material. I mentioned earlier, we have a pass map, what we call pass map. You put in your date and you go through and you learn, or it sets your schedule for you. And perhaps importantly, we answer all of your questions. We have a student forum where you can post your questions and you can see questions that other people have asked in the past. Sometimes you don't know you have a question until you see somebody else ask the same question. And so all of that forum is available for you to read all of the questions that you've had or that you have. But anybody, any question that you ask, we will answer. We will help you solve those doubts and clear any doubts that you have. Ultimately, our goal is for you to go into your exam confident. I know it's a stressful situation, whatever it is that you do or whenever you take your exam, but we want you to have been prepared so that you walk into the exam center that day feeling absolutely comfortable and confident that you're ready and that you are going to pass your exam. And so that is everything that I wanted to say. Those are the slides and the prepared content that we had. So thank you very, very much for your attention and time. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A, and Kurt and I will start going through those questions and and answering them. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question today, or we don't get to it because we run out of time, or 5 minutes after we're done, a question comes to mind, please send us an email. You can send an email to support@hockinternational.com, and we'll be happy to answer whatever questions you have. You can go to our website to subscribe. We have information about the FMAA exam there, information about the subscription and all of those things. And so there's plenty of information and opportunities for whatever questions you have to be answered. So I will go ahead and stop sharing the screen. I think you will be able to find us if you need to, and we'll go ahead and turn our attention to questions. And there's actually one that I see that I'll address right away, and it's one that always comes up with when we talk about FMAA, and it is, if you're already a CMA, should you do FMAA? And this isn't only CMA, this is if you're CPA, if you're ACCA, if you have another certification, should you do FMAA? And really the answer to that question is no. There is no need to, because what you're looking to do with a professional certification is add to what you know. And if somebody were to come to me and I were to see that they were a CMA, and then after they took CMA, they took FMAA, I would ask why. Because the only additional knowledge you're learning in FMAA is the debits and credits. But if you pass the CMA exam, you probably already know your debits and credits. And so if you already have a certification that's not a foundational certification, so CMA, CPA, ACCA, something like that, you don't need to come back and do FMAA. Okay, if you're already a CMA and you're looking for another certification, do CSCA. Okay, do something that's strategy oriented rather than something that's going kind of backwards in your career progression, and do CSCA instead of FMAA if you're looking to study something.
There's one in here about do you need to renew your FMAA licensing every year? I don't believe you need to renew it, but I believe you have to maintain your credential.
If you want to maintain it, yes, I think it's $49 a year is kind of the maintenance fee for that. If you're a member of IMA, you don't have to pay it, is the way that works. But yes, there is a small fee if you aren't a member of IMA and you want to maintain FMAA as as a valid kind of active certification. There's a question, do you need to have a degree to take FMAA? And the answer is no, you don't. There is no academic requirement. There is no education requirement. There is no experience requirement to take FMAA. And so this is something, if you are still at university, you haven't graduated yet, you're able to take FMAA. If you didn't graduate university, if you graduated university in chemistry or engineering, you are eligible to take FMAA. Now, if you're looking then to build from FMAA into CMA, you will need to meet the CMA eligibility requirements to take the CMA exam. But in terms of taking the FMAA, absolutely, there's no educational requirement, there's no experience requirement for that.
Yeah, I like that the actual title of it is foundational. It is the base of everything. So it sort of indicates that yes, this is a great grounding thing, and it's broadly based so that anybody can take it. And then as your career accelerates and you want to go into the CMA and get into something that's more specific and advanced, that's where the more education and the better training is going to come in, I would assume.
Yeah. I'm trying to kind of combine a number of questions into kind of putting it all together. This is something that you need to make certain that what FMAA is going to do is it's going to move you forward. And so, like I said earlier, if your next career step is to become the CFO, FMAA is not going to help you do that. And one of the things that you're trying to do in an interview, whether it's for a first job in a company or a promotion in the company, is you're trying to demonstrate that you have the knowledge and skills for the job that you're going to. Not that you have the knowledge and skills for the job you're coming from or a previous position, but you need to be able to demonstrate that you have what you will need in order to succeed at that next level. And so when we talk about FMAA is the basics of budgeting, the foundation of costing and things like that. That's not something that's that finance director, finance manager level. And so there is a point in your career where FMAA will not be what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going to move you forward. It's not going to prepare you for that next job. Now, at your foundation level, your first couple of years, you may be taking FMAA to help you learn better the job you're doing today, that entry level job. And it's something too that if you're working in a large company, your work is going to be in a very narrow field. You're going to become an expert in accounts payable or accounts receivable. What FMAA will help you do is learn what's happening at that level in the other parts of the organization. And so as you go up in the organization, you have that broader knowledge about the accounting and finance function than you learn specifically in your job. Okay, you need to have a little broader experience. It's something where, you kind of look at the organizational chart as a pyramid. But if you look at how much of the organization you oversee or you work with, it's an inverted pyramid. The new hire focuses on just one little part of the company, but as you go up in the organization, your job becomes more broad. And so the CFO needs to not only know payables and receivables, but also inventory and fixed assets and every part of the organization's operations. And so even at that first level and those early stages in your career, FMAA will help you learn more broadly what's happening in the organization than perhaps what your job is going to give you that exposure for.
Yeah. And there's good value in that too, Brian, isn't there? In that you're training your understanding and you're starting to think bigger than the role that you're in,
Yeah.
not necessarily performing it bigger, but you're thinking more broadly. How does this integrate? How does the changes to the marketing budget affect the overall profitability?
Yeah.
How does this launch of a new division impact us? You can think about those things for the progression of your career, but you may not necessarily be doing them. But training your brain to think that way is always a positive to people who want to see you advance and succeed.
Absolutely. It's something where if because the organizational chart goes like this, there's more people at your current level than at the next level.
Right.
And so you need to demonstrate to your boss, your supervisor, whoever, why it is that you are the best person to take that step to the next level. And part of that a big part of that is how you perform your job, the job that you're being paid to do right now.
Yep.
But also you need that person to believe that you have the capability of more, that you can do more, you can learn more, you can take on a larger responsibility. And one of the ways you do that is simply by the conversations you have with them. If your conversations are only limited to your task and your job and what you do on a day-to-day basis, they're not going to see you as somebody who's looking to go or grow and be promoted. But if your conversations with your supervisor, if you're able to demonstrate that you understand your job, and even if you don't fully understand it yet, you are interested in understanding the next step in the process.
Yeah.
You want to know, okay, I prepare a report. What happens to that report? Because if you know what happens to that report, you might be able to change the report to make it better for the person who's using it. I'll tell a story. I mean, this is a very old story. When I was an auditor, and it's been a long, long time since I was an auditor, but I went to Betty was her name. I remember her 30 some years later. And I said, Betty, this is the report I need. And she said, Brian, what are you testing? And I said this, and she goes, that's what I thought. And she said, last year, after the audit, we looked at what you asked for and what you were testing. So we created a new report that gives you what it is you're looking for. It's a little different than the report you asked for, but we created it just for you. And so I was young. I didn't know any better. And so I said, that's great. Thank you. But can I take them both so I can show that I did get what I was supposed to get? And now I have this as well. That's what you want to do. You want to be Betty in your company. You want to go to your, when you email that report or send that report, whatever, you want to say, hey, dear Kurt, here's the report for last month, but I added a little bit of information to it because I think it might be helpful to what you're doing. Let me know if you want me to continue to add this information in the future. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, Kurt is going to say, wow, this is the person I want to hire. This is the person I want to promote, because not only is Brian doing his job, but he understands where that job fits into the larger picture.
I like the way that he thinks. I like that he's going beyond what's necessary to look, and maybe the information he sends me is beneficial and maybe it's not. But as a supervisor looking at a direct report to me, I like the way that he thinks. I like that his brain is going bigger than the role it's in there. It's completing the task at hand, but it's also thinking more broadly, which means I can probably ask him other questions, or I can explain to him why what he gave me is good thinking, but not necessarily the right way. But hey, it's got me thinking about something else, and maybe you can put this together for me and help me out. So automatically, Brian has offset himself from other folks in the same area.
And an FMAA or whatever certification is helping you have that information to do that. I'll tell one other related story from many, many years ago as well, but I had a manager, Dave, and he said, don't come to me with only a question. Come to me with a question and what you think the solution might be, or what you think the response might be. Might be wrong, but at least it's a starting point. It shows you've thought about it. And so just kind of career advice, when you have a question that you need to ask your supervisor, see if you can say, hey, this is the situation. I don't know exactly what to do, but this is what I think. Am I close? Is this a good, what should I do? But demonstrate that you've gone a little bit further in terms of doing that. We had a question that was, somebody asked if they've, with a long career gap and you're getting into accounting, should you start with FMAA or go straight to CMA? And the answer is yes, you should. You should do one of those two things. One of the things that FMAA does is it allows you to get your certificate sooner. And what I mean by that is most people, when you take CMA, will spend 12 to 18 months studying and passing the exam. So if it takes you 18 months to pass CMA, if you already have your relevant experience, you can get your certificate then, but it may be 2 years after you start studying CMA before you actually get your CMA certificate. You can start studying FMAA and in 2 months have FMAA. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is this: you are then putting on your CV that you are FMAA. If you start with CMA, the best thing you can put on your certificate, on your CV is, I'm studying CMA. Well, studying CMA means lots of different things. It means I bought the book and I read it for 5 minutes and I haven't read it since then, but I did start. And so one of the things to consider in terms of, do you start with FMAA or do you start with CMA, is that with FMAA, you will get that certificate from IMA faster. Now, it's not going to be CMA, but you are in a position then, if you're getting back into accounting or finance, to demonstrate to a potential employer, or even if you're trying to get transferred into the accounting function at your current job, you're able to go and say, look, I'm interested in accounting. and they say, okay, a lot of people are interested in accounting. Why should I move you to accounting? And you say, oh, I already passed FMAA. I've already taken my first step myself to learn these skills so that I'm ready to add value from my first day in the accounting department. That is a little bit different than, oh, I'm studying CMA. Because studying, that's
It's
a
variable, right?
yeah, that's a pretty open for interpretation as to what studying means and whether or not your studying is similar to what they think is studying. And so just something for you to kind of keep in mind in terms of when it is that you're going to get that piece of paper, to get that certificate that you're going to be able to demonstrate what it is that you are learning, what it is that you know. And so,
And it's always good to show outside initiative to things
yeah,
beyond work. Internal initiative at your job is always wonderful to do, but an outside thing that benefits you personally. Here, I'm applying for this job. I've achieved this FMAA certification that lands me the job. And now, as my job progresses, I'm still studying for CMA and I'm moving up. And eventually, those two things are going to be up here. And that leads you to the next role in that tinier part of the pyramid that Brian was talking about.
yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we've answered it. It looks like we've gotten the questions that people have asked, and we've kind of consolidated some of them. And so if we've missed your question specifically that you were hoping to ask or whatever the case may be, please send us, reach out to us by email. Actually, somebody did just ask a question. Um, and it's a good question that I will answer. The question is if FMAA will help if you're an enrolled agent, somebody who's studying for the enrolled agent exam. I believe the answer to that is yes. I don't know what it is that you want to do with your enrolled agent, what your job is, or what it is that you're looking to do. But enrolled agent is a U.S. tax certification. If you're looking to build your own practice as an enrolled agent, I believe that having FMAA is a way that you can help communicate to your business clients that you understand business. It will help you do their taxes better. It will help you be in a position to add value in that even if you're not going to do consulting for them necessarily or directly, but you will have a better sense when you get their accounting information, what may or may not be right, what may or may not be complete, what may or may not be done in the best way possible. And so if you are going to open your own tax practice or already have your own tax practice, I think that having FMAA in addition to enrolled agent is a way for you to communicate to potential business clients that you are different. You have a different level of understanding of their business and their accounting than an EA who's not also an FMAA. And so, yes, I think that FMAA adds a great deal to the enrolled agent who's working as a tax practice. If you're part of a large organization and just filling out individuals 1040s, then that may not be something that will add a lot of value. But if you're an individual or looking in the future to open your own tax practice, FMAA will be a great addition to that.
Good.
So thank you very much, everyone, for your attention. I hope that when we disconnect, you think that that was a value added hour for you or almost an hour for you. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer them. I look forward to helping all of you, some of you become FMAA, CMA, whatever the case may be, whatever works for you, and will help you with your career. So thank you very much, everyone.